The following podcast is brought to you by the Johners Podcasting Network, found exclusively at WrestlingWithJohners.com.
And hello again, wrestling fans. We are back with another edition of This Week in History. This is episode number 46, so we're getting closer to that week 52 where we're going to have to reformat to keep this going. And so we'll look forward to some of your feedback on what you would like to see us do for episode 53 and beyond. We have some ideas going on, but this is episode number 46. We're going to look at the week of October 29th until November 4th. So there's a lot of history going on. Our final Halloween Havoc after last week, going through almost every Halloween Havoc, will happen on today's thing. Well, thank you for joining us Thursday at noon for our show, whether you're watching on Stitcher or listening on Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or anywhere else you get your podcast from, watching on YouTube or Facebook. And we want to thank you for your support. You can always reach out to us. Email us, scumbagswrestling@gmail.com. Easiest to do is go to our Facebook page and contact us there. We're also on Instagram and Twitter, and also our website, scumbagswrestling.ca. So there are a lot of ways to get in touch with us. Let us know what you think about our future formatting. Going to go probably more deeper dive into things probably than just constantly just running everything down. Maybe long form talking about events and also people's careers. So we'll see what goes on with that, but we'll love your input, which will help us put together a show. But the guy who's put together our show so far is over in Niagara Falls, and that's Jonesy. How are you, sir?
It's getting cold down here.
Yeah, it's a little chilly. Today I was hearing on the news some places like Barrie, Ontario, were getting some snow. Thankfully didn't stay around long, but it is getting down to those single-digit temperature nights and even daytime temperatures. And yeah, the calendar just keeps on flying by. And
nope, it's time to hibernate more in come winter.
Yeah, we'll see what how creative we can get. Also, if we're going to be stuck inside hibernating, creativity sometimes flows really well. You took in an independent wrestling show this past weekend. I'm going to be part of another indie show in 2 weeks in Elmer with Hammerlock, but want to just remind everybody to support indie wrestling as well. If you get a chance, go out there and do it.
Yeah, it's good to get out, and even if you don't go, I bought 2 tickets. I only used the one, but that's okay because it helps pay the wrestlers.
Exactly, and those guys sat around for a long while not getting paid or even able to perform, for that matter, while some of the rest of the world was able to get by and work if they could. Mm-hmm. But these guys with their passion, men and women with their passion being held back, it's nice to see all the independent wrestling that's going on, and we'll run down a calendar of that later on this week also. But a lot going on. There was a whole bunch of events during Halloween weekend, and great to see all that going on. But we're here to talk about history, and if you're ready to go, so am I.
I am. All right, we're going to start off with October 29th. 36 years ago on Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, Dusty Rhodes delivered what would be his most famous promo. Dusty would speak about hard times. This promo was in response to the NWA World Champion Ric Flair, who took Dusty Rhodes out of action. Rhodes would go on, of course, to win the NWA World title at Starrcade 85, only to have a decision overturned on a technicality a week later. Again, Dusty had to deal with hard times. That is a long speech he gives, and definitely one of the better speeches out there, up until his last days of even being seen on TV. I remember not too long ago when he was there with the 2 Rhodes boys, the promo he gave the one night on the Raw. Just an amazing promo guy.
Yeah, when they were going to go against the Shield and the family reunited. There was also that great promo with getting Dustin to take him on as a partner for War Games when before they found the Nasty Boys, and they Rhodes their blood, and happened to bow down to Arn Anderson because Arn turned on him and all the other stuff. That was an amazing promo there. Dustin and Cody have kept that up because Cody did the same sort of thing with being family when Cody needed Dustin to be a partner and a brother. So they've taken a lot from their father and dined with kings and queens and had pork and beans and everything. The man who gets his watch and then kicked to the curb, those are high times, baby.
Definitely one of the best, I'd say, the top 10 wrestlers, at least in our time that we got to see. 33 years ago in New Orleans, Louisiana, the Road Warriors, Hawk and Animal, defeated the Midnight Express, Bobby Eaton and Stan Lane, to win the NWA World Tag Belts.
Yeah, on their road to getting the moniker of one of the greatest tag teams of all time as well. Like we talked, I think, last week with the Dudley Boys getting so many tag team titles. The Road Warriors paved the way for teams like the Dudley Boys.
Mm-hmm. And now this part I do have blacked out, but I want to ask you, does the WWE Network have shows like the Survivor Series Showdown was one of the things that happened 31 years ago? And those shows are actually, I know some of them are on YouTube. They're actually pretty good, those ones that they had promoting the next pay-per-view, which I don't remember us being able to see here in Canada.
No, those are mainly, I think, on the USA Network. So we didn't get that availability here in Canada because TSN wasn't broadcasting and Rogers Sportsnet didn't exist at that point. But then, those were mainly on USA Network. I do not think the WWE Network actually has any of those. They have the main shows like Raw, SmackDown, Superstars, Challenge, and all those other ones. And, of course, the pay-per-views. But I don't think they have those specials. I'd have to take a deep dive into the archives to see if those things sort of popped up. Probably do well to just put it in the search bar and see if it appears.
Yeah. All right, we're going to go to a Halloween Havoc. 26 years ago, WCW presented Halloween Havoc in 95. The show featured the in-ring debut of the Giant and the Monster Truck sumo match on top of Cobo Hall. Hulk Hogan, of course, would defeat the Giant in the Monster Truck sumo match, which was on top of the Cobo Hall. Post-match, the two would come to blows, and Hogan knocked the Giant off the roof. And, of course, was this the end of the Giant? We wouldn't know until the pay-per-view started. Johnny B. Bad defeated Diamond Dallas Page to win the WCW World Television Championship. Sabu defeated Mr. JL, and it was Sabu's only pay-per-view match in WCW. And, of course, the main event, the Giant's back, amazingly, after falling off Cobo Hall, which they say is about a mile away from the river, and it's not. But anyways, the Giant defeated Hulk Hogan by DQ to win the WCW World Heavyweight Championship, even though he fell from 5 stories only hours ago. And this was the night, of course, of one of my favorites, the Humping Yeti.
The Yeti! It's the Yeti! As Tony Schiavone would say. But, this kind of a little confusing. As they started billing the Giant as being Andre's son. And then he was part of the Dungeon of Doom and did this whole monster truck bullshit, tug of war type deal, and back and forth with each other on that roof. And then all of a sudden, Hogan knocks the Giant off, as you said, 5 stories to his death. Why wasn't Hogan arrested? It was all on video. People saw. Like, there was no repercussions. All of a sudden, he just comes down to the ring waiting to find out if the Giant's still alive so I can defend my title.
Now, mind you, I don't know if people have kind of studied the footage and see exactly what side he supposedly fell off of, because Cobo Hall is, of course, attached to the convention center down there. So it doesn't necessarily mean that he fell a whole 5 stories.
Well, same thing happened with Rey Mysterio and Aleister Black. They fell off the roof of Titan Tower only to go to a roof that was just 1 story sort of down from the air conditioning thing. Yeah. So they didn't really go that far. But yeah, and then of course the love between the Yeti and or Yeti and Giant with Hogan and the sandwich, it was definitely not PG.
Yeah, I don't have they ever interviewed Reese and go, okay, so what were you thinking? Like what?
Yeah, as you just pointed out, that was Ron Reese, one of the former members of the Flock, or became a member of Raven's Flock, that did that. So it'd be interesting to see what they actually wanted him to do, or they just improv. But Ron Reese needs to explain himself.
Yes. Of course, was this the worst Halloween Havoc? In 2000, they had a first blood DNA match between Buff Bagwell and David Flair, and this was to find out who was the father of Stacy Keibler's unborn child, though the results were never revealed, probably because they decided to not continue with that storyline. And of course, there was the Halloween Havoc that had Warrior against Hogan. Halloween Havoc. I'm trying to think where I read that, or if I heard that Bischoff said that was kind of like their WrestleMania.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned last week to you, was the fact that Bischoff and
I disagree.
Conrad always talk about Halloween Havoc, and Conrad thought that Starrcade was basically WrestleMania, but Bischoff's like, nope, Halloween Havoc was our event, and wanted to put it up with the prestige of WrestleMania for WCW. But they, on paper, had great main event looking cards. It was the execution of them that was their problem. And Bischoff has admitted that their weak points were always their finishes.
Yep, that's for sure. All right, we're done that day. We're moving on to October 30th. 31 years ago, WWF taped the main event for, in a dark match, the Rockers, Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty, defeated the Hart Foundation, Bret Hart and Jim Neidhart, 2-1 in a best-of-3 falls match to win the WWF Tag Team Championship. But of course, at the time of the taping, Jim Neidhart was about to depart the WWF, so this match was a 2 out of 3 falls, and for the WWF tag belts. During the second fall of the match, the ring ropes broke, and the match continued with the Rockers winning the WWF tag belts for the first time. Of course, that was only a fairy tale for the Rockers fans, as the WWF officials decided the match didn't meet television quality, and the decision was reversed, and the belt change would not be recognized by the WWF. As a fan, if you were at, say, that type of match, would you kind of be mad? You find out, oh, they don't get to keep it, so I've seen...
Yeah, because it was never really officially mentioned. So if you were there, you're expecting, oh, okay, this is going to be shown on a Saturday night, and it doesn't come up. And then you're like, why are they not champions? It only takes all these years later with the story coming out and people talking about it, knowing that, oh, this is why they decided not to show it, because Vince didn't like the look of it.
Yeah, and that's too bad. It's one of those things where if it's being taped, like, I don't understand why they didn't fix the ring ropes.
Well, I did read something about it when I was looking for that picture, and I guess Shawn and Bret were trying to tell the ref, just fix the ropes, and they were trying to instruct them on how to do it, figuring that in editing they'd be taken care of, and people wouldn't have known any different, at least the ones at home. But for whatever reason, the referee couldn't figure out how to put the rope back together, and they just said, F it, and continued the match and did what they were asked to do. But then because of the visual, they got rescinded. Had they put the rope back in, maybe the record books would have shown the Rockers as a tag team championship holders. But you had guys that were labeled from the time they came as tag team specialists without a tag team title to their name. And it took Marty teaming up with 1-2-3 Kid and Shawn with Diesel to get them a tag team title.
Yeah, it's one of those things where some good teams, wrestlers, just never get the belt that they say they're good at. And of course, in all that, they might have kept the belt even with the botch if Neidhart didn't sign with the company shortly after the match.
Yeah,
re-signed. So, all right, we're going to move to SmackDown, I believe. 20 years ago at a SmackDown, Christian defeated Bradshaw to win the WWF European Championship. Another belt changed hands on that show as Booker T and Test defeated The Rock and Chris Jericho to win the WWF tag belts. Moving on to ECW 14 years ago, they did a taping in Uniondale, New York. Mark Henry defeated Big Daddy V. Kane and the Great Khali in a monster match battle royal, which was one of the worst matches of 2007. Watch that match. It's a great, terrible match.
Yeah, well, when you put that much beef in there, there's not much except, and with it being battle royal rules, it's just mostly punch, kick, stomp, and push.
Push. It's a happy 48th birthday to Adam Joseph Copeland, a.k.a. Edge. Copeland is currently with former WWE wrestler Elizabeth Kosienski, who wrestled for the company as Beth Phoenix from 2005 to 2012, and the couple have 2 daughters.
Now, this is one thing that I'd want to look back on, and probably even have to contact somebody like Ron Hutchinson. But both of them, including, should I also include Christian Cage, all 3 of them were at one point part of Apocalypse Wrestling Federation here in Ontario, in the Toronto area, and learned from Ron Hutchinson and Sweet Daddy Siki and all them. So I'm not sure if they were together at the same time. Obviously not as a couple, because Edge was hooked up with Val Venus' sister at one point. But if they'd crossed paths in Apocalypse, would have been interesting.
Mm-hmm. Moving on to October 31st, 42 years ago in Japan, Giant Baba defeated Harley Race to win the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. 36 years ago, WWF tapes the 3rd edition of Saturday Night's Main Event. The show, airing just 3 days later, featured the premiere of The Land of a Thousand Dances, music video from the wrestling album, plus a Halloween party. And did you know Meatloaf was actually on the drums in the video?
Yeah, well, as you see on your screen, there's the album cover, there's the inside of it, there's Meatloaf, and of course, up in the upper left-hand corner is what the record sleeve was for the single for Land of a Thousand Dances. And part of the fact that we're going to be doing some revamping of our show, as I mentioned at the start, I've got some of my memorabilia back. So I'm going to up my screen, and Chris will still be there. But there is the wrestling album, my version of it, all intact.
Yeah, it looks in good shape.
It could be in better shape.
It looks in good shape on video.
Yeah, it has a couple bends to it, but yeah, you got everybody that's there. Yeah, Mr. Wonderful and George, and of course the U.S. Express, which is Rotunda and Wyndham. And they were the guys who had Real American before Hulk Hogan did. So a lot of different things going on. Captain Lou Albano's History of Music. Cara Mia by Nikolai Volkov. Don't Go Messing with a Country Boy. which is Hillbilly Jim, Hulk Hogan's theme, which was just more instrumental than anything else, Real American, which was for, as I said, for U.S. Express, Tutti Frutti by Gene Okerlund, Land of a Thousand Dances with everybody, Grab Them Cakes, JYD, For Everybody, Rowdy Roddy Piper, and of course, rounding it out on side 2, Eat Your Heart Out, Rick Springfield by the Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart. So we'll be showing things like this. I have many years of WWE Magazine that we are going to end up diving into and seeing what was going on during that time. But
now you mentioned Hulk Hogan's original theme. Now, what I didn't know about that song is actually that song was written by Jim Steinman.
Yeah, he was part of that, and also.
And then years later, I can't remember her name right now, recorded the song, and it has lyrics. I didn't know that at all. I read that, and I immediately went to Alexa, and see, she heard me still. Wow, I didn't know that. I didn't know that Jim Steinman wrote that song.
And that's how Meatloaf was there. And then it was produced by Rick Derringer, and that's how Rick Derringer got part of, obviously, Real American. And he returned also for the Pile Driver album.
Yeah, that's their early album stuff. There was some bad stuff on it, but it was still done tongue-in-cheek. And I don't know, there's some of... they're goofy, but they're fun. And also on that Saturday night's main event, actually, no, wait, I'm moving too far. There I am. Okay, so we're on the next one, which is 31 years ago. WWF taped the 24th episode of Saturday night's main event. The show airing November 25th was the end of an era. It was the final match ever for Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard as a tag team. And I'm guessing that's just WWF, or they never tagged again together?
They never tagged again together because by Tully Blanchard failed a drug test and everything, and they were getting ready to leave, I think, to go back to the NWA anyways. But because of that failed drug test, NWA didn't pick up Tully, and Arn returned. And he was part of the Four Horsemen, and the history of the Horsemen never saw Tully Blanchard return. Tully did other organizations, including, I think, the UWF he was part of, and some Houston wrestling and stuff like that, but never returned to the NWA or WCW. So the next time that these guys were together was either at different conventions or, as they are currently now, as managers in the AEW.
And also on that card, the Genius defeated the WWF champion Hulk Hogan by countout. Post-match, Mr. Perfect, of course, smashed the WWF title belt with a hammer. 21 years ago at a Smackdown taping in Rochester, New York, Ivory defeated Lita, Jacqueline, and Trish Stratus in a Four Corners match to win the WWF Women's Championship for the third time. Ivory would hold the title until WrestleMania 7, when she would drop it to Chyna.
Yeah, it's the time when Ivory was part of the Right to Censor, and definitely looking like a school marm, not your Glow wrestler, because she was actually one of the original ladies of Glow. Yes,
she was. And is that tape did you come across that tape in your collection, the One Glow tape? No.
No, that didn't make it.
Wow. 16 years ago, Jay Russo, is it Russo or Russo?
Russo.
Oh, Russo. See there. AKA Christian, leaves WWE after 7 years with the company. He would return to WWE in 2009 as part of the ECW brand. All 4 of Christian's world titles, 2 ECW and 2 world heavyweight belts, would come in a second run, as well as an Intercontinental Championship in 2012.
Yeah, and then he ended up having to take 7 years off due to his back injuries. I actually just recently saw him on an old episode of Murdoch Mysteries in season 11. He was playing a boxer, and of course, people were surprised at this year's Royal Rumble when he returned to action, and you got that big hug between him and Edge. And so he worked that main event in WWE. He worked then went over to AEW and worked a main event to get the world title. He worked a main event in AEW, but got the Impact title off of Kenny Omega, and then just worked a world title match and main event for Impact Wrestling, dropping the belt to Josh Alexander. So for a guy who had 7 years off, 2021 has been amazing, where he's headlined 3 pay-per-views in 3 different companies.
And this could be his last run. And I wouldn't be surprised, actually, if he shows up in the next either this year's Royal Rumble or perhaps shortly after.
He's contracted to AEW right now.
Don't break holes in what I think might happen. How dare you? Okay, we're going to move on to a fantastic movie. 9 years ago, Brooke Hogan's movie, Sand Sharks, preview was released. Spring breakers have gathered for the annual Sandman Festival. Organizer Jimmy Green smells money. Unfortunately, a species of prehistoric sand tigers smells blood. Deputy Sheriff Sandy Powers, played by the beautiful but disturbing that her father is Hulk Hogan. So even if you had a chance with this woman, be like, oh man, I'm dead in the water. She wants to close the beach when revelers fall victim to a shark that can swim through sand like water. This sounds a lot like the first Piranha movie. So I wonder if they basically just copied that movie and replaced it with sand tigers.
And then we got blessed with Sharknado movies afterwards. But
was this before Sand Sharks? Was before Sharknado?
I think so, because you got 9 years ago was that. I don't think Sharknado has been 9 years, but It's been close.
Maybe it's around the same time. One studio smelt what the other studio was doing, and that happens a lot. November 1st, 72 years ago, NWA World Heavyweight Champion Orville Brown is injured in an automobile accident and is forced into retirement and forfeits the belt to Lou Thesz, who was Brown's next challenger before the accident. 31 years ago at Budokan Hall in Tokyo, Japan, Jushin Thunder Liger defeated Pegasus Kid, who was a masked Chris Benoit, to win the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship for the 3rd time. 24 years ago, former WWF champion Bret Hart officially signs his career away with WCW and marks the dark days of the Hitman's career. He would still have some good matches in WCW, but unfortunately, he was just foreshadowed by all the other garbage that was there.
Exactly, and I want to save it till next year when it's 25th anniversary of the screw job to go. We can maybe get a panel and do a deep dive. But if you see Wrestling with Shadows, whether you believe this is a work or not, the thing that held true was WCW didn't know what to do with a Bret Hart. Whether Bret knew that the screw job was going to happen, that's up for debate. But Vince McMahon screwing Bret over like he did, visually for everybody to see, gave WCW a storyline to run with Bret Hart upon arrival. And they failed to do so, and it was downhill from there for Bret. And so they proved Vince McMahon right.
Yup. 23 years ago, WWF tapes the debut episode of the short-lived Super Astros. The main event saw El Hijo de Santo defeat Super Loco. The show lasted less than a year before being canceled in September of 99. 16 years ago at WWE's Taboo Tuesday, Kane and the Big Show defeated Lance Cade and Trevor Murdoch to win the World Tag Team Championship. Moving on, 14 years ago, WWE releases Dionycio, oh man, I don't know, Torres, Psychosis, for those that I can't, wow. Some of those guys' names, no wonder they gave them other names. Anyways, he was arrested for stealing a car with a water gun. He then proceeded to run vehicles off the road, including a pregnant lady.
That's loco.
That is loco. 8 years ago, Brad Armstrong is found dead in his home in Kennesaw, Georgia. He was 51. He was the second oldest of 4 sons of Bullet Bob Armstrong and is best known for his time in WCW in the 90s, including his short feud with Berlin. Armstrong had a run in the WWE in 2006 as a trainer and color commentator before taking on a producer role for full-time in 2009.
I'd say he's probably my favorite Armstrong before Brian decided to learn how to bring out his charisma. I saw Brian, aka Road Dogg, in WCW when he was very young and just out of the Army type deal. And you wouldn't have thought anything of it, but Brad was the main Armstrong member. And yeah, he was probably my favorite of all of them. Now you see Scott still doing reffing for WWE. And also, you got Brian working behind the scenes at NXT.
They were very talented jobbers. Unfortunately, a lot of them, that's what they became. But they were at least high-class jobbers. November 2nd, 23 years ago, the WWF Hardcore Championship is introduced on Raw is War. With Mankind being awarded the title, Mankind would lose the championship for just 4 weeks later to the Big Boss Man and would never win it back. The belt was storied to be Hulk Hogan's belt, which was destroyed by Mr. Perfect some years earlier, but it was not. I thought this was a great way to introduce a new belt, giving it kind of a prestigious history, or previous history, sorry. But yeah, it's too bad that wasn't the actual, I guess they didn't keep the pieces or whatever, but...
yeah, it definitely looked like it could have been that belt that Mr. Perfect destroyed, and we talked about just a couple minutes ago. But nope, contrary to popular belief, it was not. Just maybe scrap pieces from the producer beforehand.
22 years ago at a Smackdown taping, Mankind announced no defeat the Hollies, Hardcore, Holly, and Crash to win the WWF Tag Team Championship. This was the 9th time the titles would change hands in 3 months.
Hot potato.
Lots of hot potato in. 21 years ago, WWF issues a statement that they have settled their wrongful death suit with the Hart family. The Hart family would receive $18 million, and Martha Hart no longer considered herself part of the Hart family anymore and wanted people to know that Owen was the black sheep of the family. 17 years ago at a Smackdown taping, during a $1 million Tough Enough competition, 2 of the contestants took on Kurt Angle in a shoot-style wrestling match. After quickly disposing of Chris Noraki, who I believe became Nowinski, yes?
Yes.
Awesome. Daniel Puder volunteered. Puder put Angle and Akilok, yeah, I guess so, and was in danger of submitting Angle when the referee fast counted Puder's shoulders down, though one of them appeared to be up. Puder would win that year's Tough Enough, besting Mike Mizian in the final to win the competition and the contract. Of course, not much would happen with his career, and he'd be out of the WWE. And as far as I'm concerned, he was scum for trying what he tried on national TV. That's just not If it's a legitimate wrestling matches, fine, but it wasn't. And again, when you purposely blur the line between real and not let the other guy know you're doing it, that
Yeah, Peter
I
basically
don't
went
respect that at all.
he pretty much went into business for himself to create a name because he was already from the MMA world and wanted to prove himself that way. But yeah, bad call there. And people might wonder, $1 million he won and released that quickly. But apparently those Tough Enough deals were for $1 million, but it was, I think, at $250,000 a year for 4 years. And if you got released, whoops, sorry, you didn't get your $1 million in that regards. And to know that 17 years ago, The Miz was a contender during that season of Tough Enough that they did as a segment of Smackdown, and to know that he's still around today as a 2-time Grand Slam winner. And unfortunately, this past week, on Monday, he got eliminated from Dancing with the Stars, so he should be back on TV soon for Raw. Plus, he also has third season of Ms. and Mrs. coming up. A guy who got kicked out of locker rooms by JBL and had to dress in the middle of the hallway. He's come a long way in 17 years.
Yep. Yeah, and he's entertaining to watch, that's for sure. All right, we're going to talk about Moolah. 13 years ago, Moolah, whose real name is Mary Lillian Allison, died of a heart attack. She was 84. Born July 22nd, 1923 in Toledo, South Carolina. She lost her mother at the age of 8. She would be introduced to wrestling around this time as her father began to take her to local wrestling matches. She would marry a 21-year-old man at just the age of 14. The couple had a daughter together but would divorce just a year later. She left her daughter with a friend, and Allison set out on a wrestling career. She'd break into the wrestling business under famed women's wrestling promoter Billy Wolf in 1940. She served as a valet for Buddy Rogers and Elephant Boy. The next year, Moolah defeated Judy Grable in a 13-woman battle royal to win the vacated World Women's Championship, which shared the same lineage with the NWA World Women's Championship. Though Moolah was not recognized as the NWA champ officially until 1964 due to Billy Wolf being a douchebag. And there's a lot of backstory with him being a douchebag if you've been following the show. If not, Google him. Following the bout, Vince McMahon Sr. gave her a new ring name, the Fabulous Moolah. Moolah would hold on to the championship for the next 10 years, defeating top contenders including Judy Grable and Donna Christinello, and befriending some of the biggest celebrities in Hollywood, including Elvis Presley and Jerry Lee Lewis. On July 1st, 1972, Moolah became the first woman to wrestle in Madison Square Garden. In fact, she had a hand in overturning the ban on women's wrestling in New York, even taking down football player Rosie Greer on the Mike Douglas show. Moolah would buy the legal rights to the NWA World's Women's Championship, and she would sell the rights to Vince McMahon Jr. in 1983 and agreed to appear exclusively for the WWF, making her the first WWF Women's Champion. Moolah would be a key figure in the Rock and Wrestling Connection, getting caught in the feud with singer Cyndi Lauper and manager Captain Lou Albano. And of course, the rest is history. She lived with longtime friend Mae Young from 1991 to her death in 2007.
Yeah, we discussed stuff about Moolah before, how Vince made sure she had basically a match in every decade as possible. And then she actually was one of the involved in the first WWF screw job involving the Spider Lady and stuff like that. So yeah, a whole bunch of stuff going on there. And of course, there's the dark side of stuff. The dark side of the ring took it and made a story of where she basically was overseeing the women in wrestling and somewhat of a madam in some regards, in ring and out of ring for these ladies.
You know, with the right writer, that would make one hell of a good movie. It's a happy 71st birthday to perhaps the world's most well-known ring announcer, Michael Buffer. Buffer would earn over $500 million for his trademarked Let's Get Ready to Rumble and has survived a bout with throat cancer. And you know, back in the WCW days that WCW was just throwing money around when they were getting him, not only for pay-per-views, but a lot of times for nitros. And the guy cost it was like a minimum of $10,000 for him to do
using him on Nitro kind of made it less special. I thought it was special when he was only doing the main event of a pay-per-view. But I guess they needed to get it their money's worth and started using him more on Nitro. He has a brother named Bruce Buffer, who's a ring announcer as well. And I've been looking at both Buffer brothers' styles for possibly inspiration for what I'll potentially end up doing on the Ontario indie scene, starting with Hammerlock next year, doing ring announcing. So definitely some people to look at for inspiration.
Oh, yes, there's a lot of different announcers out there. And of course, not just in wrestling and boxing, but in other sports as well. And even announcers for game shows and all that stuff. Everyone's got a little bit of style. Like I like to see more people do the really skinny mic that, of course, Bob Barker had. I thought that would be fit well into the wrestling world. All right, we're moving on now to November 3rd, 101 years ago. Evan the Strangler Lewis died following a 2-year battle with cancer in Dodgeville, Wisconsin. He was 59. 24 years ago on Nitro, Perry Saturn, in his WCW television in-ring debut, defeated Disco Inferno to win the WCW World Television Championship. 23 years ago, Jesse the Body Ventura, running as an independent candidate, is elected the 38th governor of Minnesota in one of the greatest political upsets in American history, leading Ventura to rightly say in a speech, "We shocked the world." I don't know about the whole world, but I'd say shocked part of America.
Yeah, well, this first time, I think one of the first times a celebrity actually got into politics and won. Then you would end up seeing people like Sonny Bono and Clint Eastwood and all those others follow suit after Ventura did. And I'm kind of surprised in a way that somebody like Donald Trump ended up becoming president of the United States before somebody like Jesse the Body Ventura even ran. Like Jesse didn't even run, and Trump did. Had Jesse done so, maybe we would have seen President Ventura before somebody like maybe President Bush or Obama.
It's possible, definitely, but and unfortunately, my memory doesn't like to absorb everything. I've heard why Ventura hasn't run, and it has to do with he doesn't want to jump through all those hoops, it sounded like, type thing.
Not surprising.
Yeah, but he's definitely a very smart man. So 13 years ago on Raw from Tampa, Florida, Chris Jericho defeated Batista in a steel cage match to win the World Heavyweight Championship. 7 years ago, Rusev won the WWE US title from Sheamus in a network exclusive match following the normal broadcast of Raw. And it's a happy 34th birthday for Arian Nicole Andrew, aka Cameron. And another birthday, it's the 51st birthday to Charmelle Sullivan Huffman. Charmelle would win Miss Black America pageant in 1991, danced professionally and toured with hip-hop and R&B artists, including James Brown, for about 3 years. In December of 98, she would join WCW as Nitro Girl Storm and then renamed Paisley and paired with the artist. Met Booker T. She got signed with the WWE in 2001. She got hurt training to be a regular wrestler, but would end up joining King Booker at ringside in WWE as Queen Sharmell.
All hail King Booker!
She was, I definitely, she was one of the better queens they've had, that's for sure. November 4th, our final day on this journey. 39 years ago in Norfolk, Virginia, Greg Valentine defeated Wahoo McDaniel to win the NWA United States Championship. And 33 years ago, They Live is released in theaters. The movie, directed by John Carpenter, is Roddy Piper's first starring role in a feature film. And of course, it would become a cult classic and be well known for all out of bubblegum and I'm here to kick ass and chew bubblegum and all out of bubblegum. And of course, the fight that is one of the longest fights, at least at the time, for cinema, and has been I don't want to say copied, more of a tribute, has been done before. I know South Park did a scene for scene fight, but of course it was two crippled people fighting. It is tacky, but it's definitely humorous because it's animated.
I actually use the I'm here to kick ass and chew bubblegum, and I'm all out of bubblegum line on my final exam in my firearms class at Seneca College when I was finishing up with my exams in '98. I took that go bus from my house to the main campus where our firing range was, and you had 50 bullets to shoot off, and I walked into my exam and gave that line to my teacher, and he's just like, awesome, and was ready to go. And I did kick ass, had no bubble gum, and I ended up passing the course.
Well, if you said that line and you had bubble gum, she'd probably fail you. 24 years ago, crickets. I heard crickets. 24 years ago on a Raw taping from Fort Wayne, Indiana, Dwayne Johnson makes his WWF debut as third-generation wrestler Rocky Maivia. This episode would premiere 2 weeks later. This episode also included the Pillman's Got a Gun. The craziness of these segments of Austin trying to get into Brian Pillman's home ushered in the adult storylines that WWF fans had never really seen before. And wow, I feel old because those seem like yesterday.
Yeah, I remember those really well. And WWE Network is celebrating 25 years of Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, because he debuted on TV. He debuted at Survivor Series of '96, and wearing this lovely, I'm going to assume maybe somewhat of a tribute to his Samoan heritage, and then he has this little poofy curl up top that wow, quite the image compared to what we see Dwayne Johnson all tattooed up and very lean today looking. And I'm wondering if this was a costume or attire, ring attire, symbolizing his Samoan heritage. Let's be thankful that the bloodline is not doing that today on Smackdown with Roman Reigns and the Usos, and they're only going with the lays instead of this whole collar and streamer gimmick.
Yeah, I just seen the it's almost like an animal collar if you reversed it the other way. It almost looks like it was like someone like crafted it really like in a hurry.
Yeah. And before this, he was actually wrestling in USWA as Flex Cavana.
And our last little story for the day is 18 years ago on Raw, Dave Batista made his Raw debut with an 85-second victory over Justin Credible. And that is This Week in Wrestling History, which is compiled from the vast land of Google, Wikipedia, CageSideSeats.com, and most importantly from fans and journalists that had front row seats to history. And of course, as always, a big thank you to our sponsor, Coolbet, Coolbet.com, and sports book betting and casino games. Stay cool and bet responsibly. And I'd also like to thank the Johners listeners and the Johners Network for being a part of that.
Yeah, we are available all over the place. Thanks to the Johners Podcasting Network, we are over in the UK and everywhere that the reach is there. There's even an app for the Johners Podcasting Network. Over 40 different channels available, 40 different styles of podcasts going on, from interviews, stuff like we're doing with history, news, you name it. It's available over at the Johners Podcasting Network, and be sure to download the app available on your favorite platform, whether it's Google or Google Play or Apple. So go check that out. And as said, thank you to Coolbet for being part of that. Thank you for watching us on YouTube and Facebook, and catching us whether you're on in your car or on a walk on Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or anywhere else you get your podcasts from. We're all over the place. Be sure to contact us, scumbagswrestling@gmail.com, or on our Facebook page. Tell us what you would like to see some of the format changes going on. Looking at deeper dives into actual pay-per-views where we'll break it down. We're looking at deeper dives into the careers of some of these talents that we're saying happy birthday to. So there's all that. Plus, as I said, we got the WWE magazine, and we're going to go back in time and see what was coming up that month. So those are some of the ideas. Tell us what you'd like, and we'll see what we can do about incorporating it into This Week in History as we go deeper, now that we've gone almost the full 52 weeks of the year. And so on that note, I want to thank you guys for being here, and we are done. Have a great rest of your Thursday and week. Ciao.